I was actually quite surprised to find out that there are literally no tutorials on how to do this. So that's why this video will teach you how to turn any playing card from 2D to 3D using just Blender. And to get started with this, we need some beginning point, right? So of course we could create all those cards like manually from scratch, but that's not what we're going to do. So our beginning point is not going to be a mesh. It's also not going to be an image. No, it's going to be an SVG file. And in a bit, I will tell you like why we do like an SVG file. But for now, you can go to the link in the description. There I will have a website where you can download like a full deck of cards as an SVG file. And then if you click on the download link, you can download it and then we can open it in Blender. So to open this in Blender, we can go into File and then into Import, and then you can go to Scalable Vector Graphics. And you want to go to the folder where you have all those SVG files. And in this case, of course, I recommend to do the front folder. And let's first do all the steps with a 7 of diamonds. Yeah, let's take that one. I think that's a good start. But then when you import that, you see, there's not much, right? And that's because it's just very small. So if you go over here and you select it like this, and now if you press S to scale it, then you see we have the 7 of diamonds. However, now that we scaled this thing, you will see that if you press N to make this sidebar open up and then go into item, you see that the scaling is not 111 over here, which means that the appearance that the card gives now is not the original scaling, but it's the original scaling times 33.5. But to avoid some problems in the future, we want to say that this appearance is the original scaling. And we can do that by selecting everything and press Ctrl A to apply the scale. And then you see we have 111 with this appearance. Okay, now you see we have all the things like as separate objects, right? But it's all glitching into itself and we don't really have like an overview of what we're having over here. So for now, I'm going to click on the card itself and I'm going to press H to hide it. And now we have all these symbols, and these symbols, they look like they are kind of like meshes, right? But they are not. They are curves, and that's because we imported it as an SVG. And the good thing about this is that if we go into edit mode, we see that we have control over these points. And then if you move one of these, you see we have a lot of control over this shape. Another good thing about SVGs is that we can easily give this object thickness. And to give this object thickness, we can click on it. And then if you go over here into the object data properties of this object, then you can go under geometry. And then under extrude, we can give it thickness. So if we move this up, you see it becomes thicker. However, it's a very sensitive value, right? And if you want to make this less sensitive, you can hold down Shift and then do the extrusion. However, if you think that even this is too sensitive, then I recommend just typing in a number. So for example, 0.001 to give it a thickness like this. So that's really good. However, if we take a look over here, we see the edges are very sharp, right? Like unrealistically sharp. There's like no highlight of light going on this corner. And in real life, that's quite impossible, right? So what we want to do is we want to create a bevel on this thing. And that's another good thing about SVGs. We can easily create bevels. So if you click on this object and then under geometry again, we have a bevel function over here. And now if you hold down Shift and change the depth, you see, it becomes like a blob. And that's not really good. So let's manually type something in. So let's do 0.0001. Something like that, so that we get a nice small little bevel like this. However, I hear you thinking, do we have to do all these steps for every single symbol like individually? No, luckily for you, we don't. We can actually do all these steps all at the same time for all symbols. So if I go back a little bit until it is back like this again, we can select all the symbols and then make sure that you have Shift selected one of them so that one of them is the active object. And now if you hold down Alt and then change the extrusion, you see it extrudes for all these symbols at the same time, which is perfect. In the same way, we can just hold down Alt and just type in a number 0.001, for example, and it scales it like this. And this works for any value in Blender. So also for the beveling. So if you hold down Alt, you can go into the depth over here and do 0.0001, for example, so that they all get a bevel like this. Okay, perfect. But now if we press Alt H, you see the card itself is still flat, right? It's still 2D. So let's give that some thickness too. So if we do for the card, if we also do an extrusion of 0.001, And then if we go into side view, numpad 1, you see that these symbols are sticking out on both sides, right? And that's not what we want. These symbols should only stick out on one side, you know? So what we can do is just take the card and press G and Z and move this down, kind of like that, as much as you like. The more you do it, the more 3D this is going to look. I don't recommend doing it too far, but something like this, yeah, looks good to me. Yes. One final thing that I want to do for this card is making the edges over here like thicker, so that there's like a thicker outer layer going around the card. So to do this, we're actually going to duplicate this card. So if we take this one and we do Shift D to duplicate it and then right click to put it perfectly back where it was. And then now the only thing we want to do is making the fill mode not both, but we want to make this none. And when we make this none, we're basically getting only a frame, as you can see over here. And now the only thing we need to do is giving this thing thickness, right? And we're going to do this by going into the bevel, and then under the depth, we can do 0.001 or something like that. That's maybe a bit too much. Let's make it a little bit lower, like 0.0005 or something. And now what I also recommend to do is maybe making the extrusion a bit bigger. So let's make that 0.0013 or something like that. And then let's move it up with G and Z so that it's about the same size as the symbols. And then I think that looks quite cool, to be honest. Yes, but I hear you thinking, oh my god, do we have to do all these steps for all the cards individually? That's going to take ages and I don't have all that time, you know? Well, in the same way as we did it for all the symbols at the same time, we can actually do all these steps for all the cards at the same time. So let me actually open a new Blender file. Let's go into File and then New General. And then let's remove the default cube because we don't need it. So we want to do all these steps for all the cards at the same time. However, we have a problem. If we do File and then Import and then Scalable Vector Graphics, right? We cannot import all the SVGs at the same time. By default, we have to do that individually. However, I'm quite lazy, so I went on YouTube searching for a tutorial on how to import a lot of SVGs at the same time, and I'm happy to say that I found it. So in the link in the description, you can find a video of Saint Trici Design. Apologies if I do not pronounce that right. So if you go into the link in the description of that video, you will go to a GitHub page, and on there you click on script. And that will give you the entire script. And if you then just click on this button, you can copy the code and then you can go back into Blender. And then back in Blender, we can go into scripting and then you can create a new script by clicking on new. And then the only thing we need to do is Ctrl V to paste the code in here. And the only thing you do in this code is pasting the path to your SVGs right over here. And then when you've done that, you can click over here on Run Script. And then maybe it takes some time. Okay, there it is. Okay, let's go back into layout. And then if you take a look, okay, yeah, they are very small again, right? So let's take them and let's press S to scale them. And let's also do Ctrl A to apply the scale just as before. As you can see, we have a lot of things going on over here, and that's because we have 52 cards all at the same position. However, if we look in the outliner over here, we see that each card got a separate collection. And to give this outliner a little bit more overview, we can close all the collections. So if we go over here and hold down your left mouse button and then drag down, you can close all those collections just like this. A little bit down, just like that. Okay, then they are all closed. I'm going to show you how to do all these steps for every single card at the same time. However, I'm going to skip the Joker cards for now, because if we do those, that's going to take a lot more time. And those are just the same techniques as the rest. However, it's just a lot more. So let's hide those and then we can get started. We actually want to do the same thing as we did before. So let's first hide the white cards by selecting them like this and then press H to hide them. And for the symbols, let's select them first, and then you can select just one of the objects somewhere so that you can make one of the objects the active object. And now if you go back into the object data properties of all the things, we can go into geometry, and then under the extrusion, we can hold down Alt to do it for all the symbols at the same time and make this 0.001. Now to give everything a nice little bevel, we can go over here into the bevel, hold down Alt and make it 0.0001. Just like that. However, you do see some weird artifacts going on over here. Don't you worry about that yet, we'll fix that later. But for now I want to take a look at the cards again. So if you press Alt-H, you can bring the cards back and then you can select them and then make sure that you make one card the active object by doing Shift-click on it somewhere over here. And then you hold down Alt and go into the extrusion again, make it 0.001. And then let's also move it down a little bit. Press G and Z like that. Maybe a bit more. Yeah, like that. And now for the thicker outer layer, we're going to do the same thing as before. So we're going to select all the cards, press Shift D to duplicate them, right click to put them perfectly back. And then if you go into the object data properties, you can hold down Alt and then make the fill mode from both to none, so that we're only getting a frame just like before. And for this, we're going to give it some thickness again. So let's hold down Alt and make the depth of the bevel 0.0001, something like that. Maybe a little bit more, so 0.0005. And now let's make the extrusion also a little bit bigger with 0.0013 or something like that. And then I see, oh, it's already perfect. And now we've done all the steps that we did before, right? So you would think, okay, we're done. However, there's a few more things that we need to do, especially for the cards that are King, Queen, and Jack. And to see that, I'm first going to hide all the cards and then unhide one king. So if we go over here, you can just drag down all these eyes just like that, so that you're hiding all of the cards. And then let's take, for example, the King of Diamonds. And then if you have a look, the parts of the King have some overlapping. The King has more parts than the other cards, right? And this also counts for the Jack and the Queen. So we want to make all these separate parts different thicknesses. So out of my head, I know that the yellow part should be the thinnest one. So if we click on the yellow part, we can go into the extrusion and make that 0.0005 or something like that. And then you see, yeah, that already looks quite good. The next one is going to be the red part. So the red part is going to be between 0.0005 and 0.001. So if you click on the red part and you go over here, you can do 0.0006 or something like that. And then we get the black part. So if you click on that and make the extrusion 0.0008 or something like that, then you see that looks quite good. Of course, if you want, you can make these values like different, whatever you prefer. Of course, you don't have to follow exactly what I'm doing, but I think these values, yeah, they look quite cool. So the techniques that I just did for this king, I think you can also apply that for the queen, the jack, and the other kings. So now that we have this card, let's actually take a look at those weird artifacts we saw earlier. So to do this, let's select the card and press H to hide it. And then let's search for some weird artifacts in this thing. So I'm going to move all the parts a little bit more over here and over there. And then in each part, we're going to search for weird artifacts. So if we look over here, okay, over here, I don't really see anything yet. Okay, let's have a look. Oh, this one is quite good. Oh, okay. This one, oh, we see over here, we have something weird. The reason for this is something weird is happening with the beveling. And that's because if you go into edit mode, it's because of this point, right? In most cases, it's actually quite easy to fix this. So if you take this point, for example, the point that points towards this thing, and just press G to move it, you see it's fixed already. Sometimes you can also fix it by just taking this point and press X to delete vertices. Sometimes that also works, but in this case, yeah, this works, you know. So this way you want to search for more weird artifacts, just like over here, I think. If we look over here, yeah, this is also one, but this one is a bit harder to fix, but you can move it so that it's like minimized a little bit like that. So let me now take a look if we can find more of these. Yeah, over here maybe. Yeah, if you make it smaller like that, then it already looks better. Okay, and let's see. Okay, for the rest, I think it is quite good. Yes. And in the red part, I also don't really see weird artifacts, so that's good. And now we want to put all these things into their original position, right? So let's take all these things and press Alt-G to reset the location. And now if you press Alt-H, you see we have a perfectly looking 3D card. However, I also want to show you how to create that premium material that you saw at the beginning of this video. However, before we do that, let's set up some lighting and a nice little scene. So for that, let's do Shift A, for example, and let's set up a plane and let's make that plane bigger. Let's go into edit mode for that plane and then let's select these 2 points, for example. and then press E to extrude it. And then I recommend, yeah, maybe something over here so that it kind of goes in an angle, right? And then this part, let's bevel that with Ctrl B and then scroll on your mouse wheel to add more segments so that we're kind of mimicking a studio environment or something like that. And you can also press A to select everything and then press S and Y to make this wider. And then in object mode, you can press right click and do shade smooth for it. However, at the moment, this card consists of like separate objects and I kind of want to keep it that way. However, I also want that all these cards move along with one other object. So if we do Shift A and we do an empty, we can do an empty cube, for example. And then let's move this cube approximately to the middle of this card, something like that. And then to make this easier, let's select the plane and press H to hide it. Now if we select all of the cards and shift click on the cube, we can do Ctrl P and parent it to the cube. So if we do Alt H to bring the studio back, we can now move the thing just easily like that. So if you press R twice, you can move it like this and maybe like that and maybe like this. Yeah, like this position, something like that. And for the camera, let's do something easy. So let's do Alt G to reset the location. And let's also do Alt R to reset the rotation. So let's now go into numpad 1 and let's move the camera over here. Let's do RZ90 to rotate it 90 degrees over the Z axis. And let's rotate it 90 degrees over the Y axis by pressing RY90. So now if we go over here into the toggle camera view, this is what our camera sees. And then if you turn on the lock camera to view, you can just move around your scene and just position your camera just like that. I like this position a lot. So now let's take a look in render view mode. And at the moment we are in Eevee, let's go actually into cycles so that we have nice lighting. And also turn on your GPU, of course, if you have a graphics card. It will make it a lot faster. So for the lighting, I actually like to remove this point light and to add in a area light. And then if you move that up, you can move that like above the image, press S to scale it a bit and press right click and do adjust light power to make the power a bit higher. So like that. Yes, like this. And then for the world color, let's make that black so that it does not affect our card. So if we do that like this, then we just have this area light and I think that already looks quite cool. However, let's make this card look a bit more premium. And to do this, let's actually go into the shader editor. So let's split our screen in half and let's go into the shader editor. And also I recommend that you turn off the toggle camera to view again so that you can just zoom in like this. So let's start with the material of the card itself. And for this, I really like a dark metallic material. So if you click on the card, you can remove the current material and then create a new material for it. And let's name this black or something like that. So we want to make this metallic. So let's put the metallic up and let's make the roughness a little bit less so that it looks like this, right? Already looks quite cool. So let's make the base color a little bit lower. And then what I also want to do is now it looks quite flat, right? I want to give this like that really rough metallic look. And to do this, we're going to make use of a noise texture. And let's preview this noise texture by pressing Ctrl-Shift-Click with the Node Wrangler add-on. And also with the Node Wrangler add-on, let's click on the noise texture and let's do Ctrl-T to add in a texture coordinate and a mapping node. And then let's connect object with vector so that it is mapped like this, which looks a lot better. We want to make the scaling of the noise texture a lot higher. So let's set this to like 400 or something like that, so that we're really getting that small noise, as you can see over here. And this noise, we want to convert that into bump data. So if you do a bump node, you can make the noise texture the height, and then you're getting this. And this we put into the normal of the principal BSDF, and then you connect the principal BSDF again, and then you're getting this result. However, I think the bumpiness is a bit too strong at the moment, so let's make the distance 0.1 or something like that, or even lower if you prefer. But I like it like this. Now, another thing that is going to make this thing look a lot better is ambient occlusion. Because if you look over here, for example, yeah, there's like no contact shadow, right? So let's add that in. If you do an ambient occlusion node and you do Ctrl-Shift-Click on it, you see you're already kind of getting like contact shadow. If you want to make that stronger, you can do a color ramp right over here. And then if you drag the black part right over there, you see it already becomes stronger. I don't recommend the setting too high, but kind of like this looks good. So now if you want to mix the output of the color ramp with any color that you want, you can actually add in a mix color node. And then as color A, we can drag this color to here. And then color B is going to be the output of the color ramp. So now if we do Ctrl-Shift-click on the mix node, you see, yeah, that's not really changing a lot. That's because we are now doing it on mix. We want to put this on multiply so that we're making the original color darker where the color ramp is darker too. So also we can set the factor on 1 so that we're getting complete ambient occlusion. And now you see you can make this any color that you like. And this is before and this is after. I think it looks amazing. And now this is going to be the base color of the principal BSDF and then connect the principal BSDF like this again. So that looks quite cool. For the outer edge, I like to make that gold. So if you click on it, we can actually go over here and make this the black material. However, if you now change the color over here to anything, you see that it also changes on the card itself. So let's make a copy of this black material just for this frame. And to do this, we're going to click on this 2 over here. And now you can make the color of this one different. And also the color like this. Yeah, something like that. Just make it somewhat gold-ish. And I think this will look better with less bumps. So let's make the distance 0.01, for example. And the strength also lower. Yeah, more like that. And maybe the roughness a bit less. Yeah, something like this I think looks good. Yes, you can play around with this, of course. So now that we have the gold part, that's actually quite convenient because I want to make more things gold. So the things I want to make gold are the letters, the symbols, the yellow part and the blue part. So let's select those like this, like this, like this, like this, and like this, and like this, and like this. And then shift click on the frame. And then if you go over here into the material properties, you can go over here and do copy material to select it. And now they all get that golden texture, which already makes it look a lot more premium. As you can see, it looks so majestic and big, and I think it looks quite cool. Now for the red part, we're going to do the exact same thing. So if we take the red part and we make this the black material again, we can also click on the 2 over here and then make this red. So like this, for example. And this one I'm actually going to remove the bumpiness from, and I'm going to set the roughness a bit higher and the metallicness a bit lower or so. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to set the color over here brighter, just like that. Ooh, yes, that looks good. Oh, and also rename this material to red, of course. And the gold material to gold, of course. So now for the black part, let's give that the red material. And then let's click on the 2 over here to make a copy. And then you can make this black, but I actually thought that it would be cool if we make this blue-ish or something like that. Maybe darker blue. Yeah, I think I like that. You can also, you can also make it black, of course, but then it looks like that. I think blue or something like that. What does it look like if we do this? Yeah, but then it's so dark, you know. That's like, yeah, it looks good. It looks really good, but I think I'm going with like the blue, more bluish thing like that. Maybe we can make the light a bit stronger. With that being done, I think I am quite happy with the results, to be honest. I know that this tutorial was a little bit different than other tutorials that I've done in the past, because it didn't really consist of that much geometry nodes. However, talking about geometry nodes, if you want to learn more about that subject, then I have good news for you, because some time ago I released the Big Notebook. It's a book that explains every single node in geometry nodes in a very clear and easy way. And it starts from the very basics and then progresses towards more advanced techniques. And in my previous video, I actually announced that there is a discount until the end of June. So if you use the code FRACTAL to buy your book, you will get 50% off your purchase. And with that being said, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment down below if you have any questions, and if you don't want to miss out on any future videos, I recommend subscribing. And with that being said, I see you in the next one. Before I go, I actually have one cool thing that I want to show you. At least I think it's quite cool. Because a friend of mine has a 3D printer, right? So I asked him, yo, would it be possible if you could print out a playing card for me? And he was like, yeah, sure, why not? So he did that, and this is the result. As you see, first of all, he did it at the normal size of a playing card. But then you see it kind of loses a bit of detail in the smaller parts, right? But I thought this was already quite cool. But my friend was like, we can do better, you know? So he did it again, but a bit bigger. So now I have a huge playing card over here, but it does have all the detail in it, you know? So I think, yeah, this is quite cool. I think, yeah, it's such a good quality. I have no knowledge about 3D printing, but I think this is quite a cool result. So yeah, that's it. That's what I wanted to show you. Thank you for watching and have a nice day, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.